Hey everyone, my name is Dante and welcome back to Story Hub, your hub for the best stories on Reddit. I am an only child. Until the spring of this year, I lived with my parents, mom, 59, and dad, 70. With the exception of college, I've pretty much been around my parents, particularly mom, for the majority of my life. Dad traveled a lot of work, so it was just mom and I for years. Mom and I were close for a long time up until after I moved back in when I graduated college. I started seeing these cracks in the foundation that I either never noticed before or just didn't recognize as signs of trouble. For starters, mom's super passive-aggressive. She never says anything outright but always twists it in a way to make you feel bad you aren't thinking about her needs or wants at all. Second, she plays the martyr quite often. This is important for what happened yesterday, today. Third, she's bad at communicating and doesn't listen to much of what I have to say or interrupts to talk about herself. This is something I've told her dozens of times I don't like. There's other things, but for this post this is the important stuff. On to the meat of the situation. In November, Dad got diagnosed with cancer. It's stage 2, and he goes for treatment once every 3 weeks. It's not ideal, but it's nearly a best case scenario. Around the time of Dad's diagnosis, Mom started a new job. Her manager's a friend and knows my dad very well too. Mom takes Dad to treatment and doctor appointments. Mom taking Dad to appointments has been a major topic in the family. She's worried that she's taking too much unpaid time to go with him to treatment, and how once every 3 weeks is going to greatly affect her job. She's even complained about the chair she sits in while my dad is getting chemo, to a point where my dad mentions how awful it is for my mom to have to sit in such an uncomfortable chair. Like I said earlier, I moved out in spring of this year. I'm less than an hour away from them, but I often get comments from mom about how I'm not there anymore. I've been working with my therapist to establish boundaries and how to talk things out with her, so it's been touch and go for about half a year. When the treatment plan was being discussed for my dad, mom reached out and asked if it would be possible for me to take dad to chemo if she couldn't get the day off. I work a hybrid schedule, and his treatment days are ones where I work remote. So I talked about it with my manager and he's completely okay with me taking my dad for treatment if need be. At first she told me she couldn't give me any sort of answer, but after Dad's first round of chemo, she said she would get back to me. Okay, cool. I still haven't heard any word about this to this day. And she said she would let me know when we talked at the beginning of December. Since his diagnosis, I've been texting with Dad a lot more to see how he is. I also went directly to him about specific stuff after I noticed that she was essentially talking out of both sides of her mouth between the two of us. Mom is also great at guilting me into doing things, so when we had this conversation about taking Dad to treatment, she bemoaned the fact that she has to do everything on her own with no help. Stuff like that. Yesterday, she and I were texting about Dad's recent chemo session and how bad he felt afterwards. I was with boyfriend, 32, at the time of all this, who's aware of how mom has talked to me. She then sends a text casually asking if boyfriend and I would like to come to their house for New Year's Day for dinner, and that there's no pressure to do so, but she wanted to extend an invite. I told her I appreciate the invite, but boyfriend and I had plans already. She responds, "No worries. I just know it would make your dad happy." To me, this was a guilt trip. She's said similar comments in the past before to get me to stay home when she was lonely and I wanted to go out. So, in an effort to establish boundaries, I texted her back with, "I don't appreciate a comment like that. It feels trippy." And mom exploited it. Mom, whatever. It wasn't meant like that. Add another gripe about me to your list. Me. There's no gripe, but through text that's what it seemed like to me. It really upset me to read it after being invited down and not being able to join, especially after knowing Dad had a rough day at chemo. If it wasn't meant as such, then it was just a miscommunication. But I wanted to say something so you know how I feel. Mom, maybe you took it as a guilt trip because you feel guilty. Sorry, but I am more stressed out than I've ever been in my life right now, so I can't walk on eggshells anymore. My husband is fighting for his life, and it's not particularly pretty to have to watch him struggle. I'm not sure how or why I became the enemy, because I've never wanted anything but the best for you. Regardless of what our relationship is like now, all I can say is your dad could use your support. Text him more often, even call him, to let him know you love him and are just checking in to see how he is. Needless to say, this freaking upset me. Not only because she lost it on me like this, but because she turned it around so quickly to make me feel like I'm the villain and that I don't do anything to help. She's never been this blatantly mean to me before, and it hit me really, really hard. I've been made to seem and feel like a bad daughter so many times throughout my life, and this is the cherry on top of it all. For the last few months, I've slowly come to the conclusion that I do not like mom as a person. If it were anyone else, I would have dropped them long ago as someone I associate with. But because she's my mom, I've been trying to work through things and maybe salvage a relationship. But after today, I'm pretty much done with her. I guess I just wanted to put this out somewhere where people who are also struggling with difficult situations can hopefully relate. This has freaked me up and I don't see my therapist till after the holidays. I'm trying to make sense of everything. Update. A few days after my mom had sent the text, I had a therapy session. My therapist is very well aware of how mom is and how she deals with confrontation. Right before I talked with therapist, I saw that I had gotten a couple of messages from my mom. I only saw the notification icons as I still had her muted. I ignored them because I still wasn't ready to see what else she had to say. Knowing her, I assumed that it would be something else scathing or blaming me for making her lash out the way she did. I even told therapist that she had sent me a text but that I wasn't ready to see it. After my session ended, I decided to muster up the courage and read what she had to say, and guys, it was the most unexpected thing ever. Mom sent me a very long text explaining what she's been going through since Dad's diagnosis and start of treatment. He has lymphoma and goes to chemo once every 3 weeks. I won't post either of our responses since they were so long, but she was very matter-of-fact and sincere about it. She talked about how it's hard to discuss emotional subjects because that's how she wasn't raised, and she has a difficult time voicing her feelings because of it. Next, she talked about how my dad's doing, the mental state he's in, how their neighbors are taking care of them, and the support they've been shown. She even explained how her job's been good to her and is letting her take time off when needed with no questions asked. She said that because of this she doesn't think that I'll need to step in, but that I'm more than welcome to tag along for Dad's treatment days for extra support. She then ended everything with how she loves me and that she would want to talk things out because she's unsure of why I seem to never want to be around her or that I like her. Mom said a lot, so it's difficult to summarize, but that's the gist of everything. So, I took my time, but I explained to her everything I had recently been going through, how Dad's diagnosis impacts me and makes me feel, and most importantly, how her passive-aggressive comments and actions make me feel and come across to me. Basically, how she says anything and everything with no thought or consideration of impact. Mom took this well and said she would make an effort to change and keep these things in consideration. This is the first time ever my mom has been this open with me. Though it doesn't erase anything she's done in the past, nor will it be an excuse if she slips back into her usual habits. Seeing her perspective without the gaslighting and passive aggression is a promising start. I'm glad we talked and I'm cautiously optimistic. Not an idiot. And be careful, Opus. She's not going to change. Gray rocking is your best bet with her and have a relationship with your dad outside of that as much as possible. Instead of responding to her digs at you, let the awkward silence go for a second and change the subject. How is work? How's your yard, flowers, whatever doing? She complains about the hospital chairs. Say stuff like, I know Dad appreciates you being there for him. Remember, if you can't take him, to let me know ahead of time so I can make arrangements to take him. If you're talking during the day and she whines or complains, use the work call, talk to you later, and hang up. If needed, have a recording of a phone you can play so it sounds real. Protect your own mental health. If she outlives your dad, she'll be used to you being busy and not able to be her emotional support puppy. Encourage her to volunteer or find a hobby. Not an idiot. She doesn't want you to take your dad to chemo because then she wouldn't have a complaint. Although, she probably would complain that you don't talk enough about how it went and blame you for not doing something special. You do talk to your dad more than you did because she has been playing keep away with the details. She says you don't talk to him enough because you aren't calling her and having her pass the phone to him. She's laying the guilt on thick and gaslighting you. She needs to be the martyr, and if you aren't there, she has to double down during the conversations where you are. Not an idiot. Facing something as serious as a spouse having lymphoma may have opened her eyes. Obviously, she's scared for your father, and she's realizing that she's pushing you away with the attitude. Perhaps it occurred to her that she could theoretically lose both of you if she doesn't check herself. I hope your father's treatments go well, and he makes a speedy recovery. All my best to you guys.